Yo, what is up, guys? Shinobi here doing another reaction video, and in today's video, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be discussing on why new players, my bad. I was about to say something else, but why newer players prefer WoW over Genshin. And honestly, I'm going to be real, when it comes to this topic, a lot of the people who prefer WoW over Genshin, let's be real, they're previously Genshin fans. I'm one of them. I'm one of those ones who used to play Genshin a lot back when there was nothing else. I had played Genshin Impact, and Bleach Brave Souls, and also Soccer Spirits when that game was still alive. Those were the three games I was playing around that time, and Genshin took up a lot of my time. If you look back on my channel, I played up till Fontaine, basically, and then after that, I hadn't made any content on the story quest or anything since. And it's also due to the fact that the game just straight up has not improved in the last 5 years. That I kind of ended up just quitting the game. Fontaine, in my opinion, is where the game peaked as far as story goes, and that's it. But as far as the gameplay aspect of it, I just got burnt out. I got hella burnt out trying to play the game because having to wait to certain days to actually level up my character's talents, not to mention having to wait for certain days to level up weapons. And then on top of that, the fact that you would have to climb everywhere. You couldn't sprint up the walls or anything like that unless you had like a certain character like Kazuha or whatever like that, who I did get, Kazuha, my boy, to this day. And then Yelan, like you had to make in order to explore in Genshin Impact, you had to make a literal specific team with like, who was it? The Rolling Girl, who I can't remember, who's like a 4-star. There's another 4-star that they added recently who was in Fontaine, who you can use to run around, and Yelan. Like people made whole teams specifically just to travel in the overworld in Genshin Impact. If you didn't have these characters, you're going to be walking or running around for like maybe a couple seconds before you run out of stamina. And then it's going to take just forever, man. And it just burned me out. It really did. Like it got to a point where I didn't even care about the Abyss. I did not do the Abyss at all. I still haven't beat it to this damn day because I don't care about it. And according to what I've heard, the game right now is kind of in a pay-to-win kind of spot right now where they got like these 41 days skins that they got in the game, but they only last for 41 days. You don't get to keep them, and like the event is mostly made for whales. So there's a lot that I can honestly go into when it comes to the issues that Genshin has, which really sucks because they have a good story and they have a good lore. It's just that the presentation for the story majority of the times, especially as of recent, has been absolute dog water. Too much yap and not enough just, show, don't tell. And then, don't even get me started on all the other stuff, man. Don't even get me started. But, like, there's a lot. There really is a lot. And for some reason, they just refuse to fix their game. There are features that players have been asking for years. And they just ain't giving them to us, bro. They're just not doing it. They do not care. They're too busy trying to get Dalway his 7th millionth yacht over actually fixing the game. And I, once again, could keep going, but I'm not surprised that newer players are wanting to play WoW over Genshin, because everything that Genshin does, WoW basically takes that shit and does it 20 times, not even 20, like 30 times better. It's not even close. It's not even close. And y'all can call me a Hoyo show or whatever the fuck you want, but I played all the way up to Fontaine, so I got some history with, Genshin. And trust me when I say, the game it's not in a good space right now. It's not in a good space right now.
Genshin is the worst WoW on top. Genshin better than the Kuro Dogs. Hoyo version could never. Kuro coin to the top. Augusta slaughters on week of WoW.
This is Twitter in a nutshell right here.
25% shit game, just a copy.
This is Twitter right here.
No, look at this prostitute. No, look at my shiny gambling addiction. No, look at mine. WoW CC bad. Steve Bundax good.
Jesus Christ.
Can I get your guys' attention? Okay.
That's basically Twitter in a nutshell right now.
Recently, a huge YouTuber named Nicholas
yes,
has entered
sir.
the Gacha Gauntlet. And has
a new challenger has arrived.
ZZZ.
And he tried every single one, bro. He tried every single one, and the only ones that right now I think he's currently trying to play a lot of is Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero, kind of. He kind of got backseated by all the toxic people in that game, and it was a pretty bad experience the first time around, so I don't think he's giving up on ZZZ completely, and honestly, ZZZ is a fun game if you give it some time, but like the backseating and everybody telling him to do this, that, and the third while he's playing it, that definitely didn't help its case. He tried HSR. It looks like he sounds like he likes HSR a bit, though to be honest, he's gonna like it until he gets to Penacony. And after that, it's going to be Yap Fest galore. And I don't know if he's going to be trying to go through that. But, like, the first half is, pretty all right. Bellabog is freaking peak to this day. And, the Lofu, in my opinion, is also peak. Also peak fiction. Panacone, peak fiction, but they could have literally gotten rid of 90% of the yap and it still would have been the same. So, I had to see 10 hours of that. 10 hours, by the way. Holy crap! How many stories? How many games could I have beaten in that time frame? But yeah, we'll see. But right now, he's loving Wuwa. Is Endless Zone Zero still up in the air in HSR? I think he likes it, but we'll see.
And is just now giving HSR a shot. He's played through all of Wuwa, stopped playing ZZZ due to annoying fans on both sides of the children's playground that they like to call their battlefield.
Yep.
And then quit Genshin after.
Yeah, the Genshin, he basically, bro, that shit. Yeah, that did not last, man. And I'm not surprised either, because he played Wuthering Waves first before he played Genshin Impact. He played Genshin Impact, and after he played Wuthering Waves, and oh my god, it's like night and day up in there, bro. Night and day, I'm not surprised.
An hour or two.
And keep in mind that unlike all the other people that are in this space, this guy is completely new to gachas. So you can't even say that, all the other crap was going on. He does know Tech Tone, but outside of that, it's like one of them things that is like, it's one of them things where everybody kind of just let him try out all the games and, well, what ended up happening, bro. So no big surprise there.
But hey, he's enjoying HSR. I think. But a big point of conversation was how he went from
two times speed, can you keep up? That's crazy.
To this.
Yep.
So yeah, as expected, a lot of Genshin fans are upset, and Wuwa fans are rejoicing while the minority of Kurobots are gloating. They got recognition from by most definitions, a normie.
Yep, the normie, man.
I thought people hated, but if it means glazing the thing that they like, then yippee, I guess. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this specific clip.
Wuthering Waves, to me, is me in my best shape, right? I wake up in the morning, I could get the day going, I could get my day started, I could grind hard, I could work out, I could have a great day and everything. Muscles, I'm ripped, I'm eating right, I don't feel sluggish, I'm energized, I don't feel tired all day. Genshin Impact, to me, is the opposite.
Yep, you wake up, you're just tired, you're sluggish, you don't want to do nothing, you just sit in the bed, bro. That's basically, and I'm not lying, it actually kind of has that feeling. Like, I remember I stopped playing Genshin for a long time. I hopped back in the game. I reinstalled it when I got my PS5. Played it for a little while. I'm not going to lie to you when I say I was falling asleep as I was playing it, bro. That's how boring the game was to me compared to Wuwa. And keep in mind, I had already played through Genshin for 5 years at that point. 4 years, technically, because I stopped around Fontaine. But I hopped back in there, and I'm not gonna lie, bro. By that point, the Natlin class, the Natlin quest was already out, and I couldn't do it, man. I literally turned on the game, opened it up, played around with Kazuha for a little while, looked around at the world for a little bit, beat up some hill trolls, and then as I was doing all this, my eyes were just closing, bro. I was like, bro, what the hell? I'm not even gonna lie, I uninstalled the game immediately and went straight back to Wuthering Waves and Endless Zone Zero. Like, holy crap, the game is so outdated. Now, that doesn't make any of my memories that I had with the game any different. It's just that I got a taste of something better, and then now I can't go back. I can't go back, man. I can't go back.
Shape in Nicholas Light. It's walking up 3 steps and I'm out of breath in Nicholas Light. Slow and sluggish, and I don't want to wake up, and I'm just feeling tired all day. That's what Genshin Impact felt for me.
I think this line right here perfectly encapsulates
that basically
the biggest reason why
yeah.
people are starting to gravitate towards Wuthering Waves more than Genshin. And no, this isn't a video to dog on Genshin. Trust me, I have more than enough disdain for the game to do that. But I'm looking at this.
Shit, we all do at this point, especially the ones who've been playing it for so long just to watch it go down the shitter. That's the crazy thing. Is when it comes to the whole entire thing about people so-called hating on Genshin, it's not even hate. It's literally disdain that they won't improve the game. The game that we all loved back, when it came out in 2020. The game that we were all excited to see the ending when it came to the Abyss Twin, the siblings, Dainsliff, all the lore, all the, backstories. The game that we were so excited to just play for the long haul, and it just never improved. They didn't never listen to the player base, and they still aren't listening to the player base. In fact, at this point, they're kind of just catering to the whales, and they just say, fuck the player base at this point. And then it's just like, man, what that game could have become if the freaking developers actually cared. It's the same thing with Honkai Star Rail. Like, they started out well, bro. Like, it got to the point where, once again, we had the whole Genshin could never thing. And then now it's like one of them things where, like, after Penacony, they just dropped the ball. And now it's just like, bro, like, what are we doing? What are we doing, bro? And Zenless Zone Zero right now, in my opinion, I said it when I was streaming literally yesterday, technically today, but by the time this video goes up, it's probably going to be tomorrow. And I literally said that if Hoyoverse fucks up Zenless Zone Zero, which they just might do because they're known for screwing up their games after 2 years, they just say, screw it, we're going to make a new game that's better than the one we had before and screw up the old one. It's just one of them things where it's like, man, what are you doing, man? And once again, with Zenless Zone Zero, that's the last, Hoyoverse game that I'm currently still playing at the moment. And if that game drops and starts doing the crap that the previous two did, bro, that's going to be the last Hoyo game I'll ever play. As much as I love the characters, as much as I love the stories that these games could tell, I just can't, bro. There's no way. There's no way. Sometimes you just gotta move on, man. Sometimes you just gotta move on.
Through the lens of someone who likes video games. And as someone who's played a bunch of different video games throughout my life, I like to think I know a little something something. So we're going to talk about why I think new players like Nicholas are gravitating towards Wuwa as opposed to Genshin, and why those first 30 minutes are so important.
Yep. First 30 minutes, bro, like the first 10 minutes. The first 10 to 20 minutes of a game, when it comes to gacha games specifically, when it comes to how easy it is to navigate the game, when it comes to how it is, when it comes to, if we're talking open world, how well it feels to move around in the game, like the characters, if that shit ain't on point, along with the story, if that shit ain't on point, if that ain't getting you in there, it's cooked. It's cooked.
We're going to start with some psychology. Here, I'll put this up for the more attention-deficit viewers. We're going to talk about two things: first impression and tolerance. TLDR, studies show that you have about 1/10 of a second to make a first impression. So about the same amount of time to zero out your bank account when you're buying pulls. Alongside that, just because of how our brains are wired, it can be really hard to shake judgments based off of first impressions due to, well, human nature and our tendency to look for confirmatory evidence. Plus, there's this thing known as the anchoring effect, which is basically our tendency to judge something heavily based off of the first piece of information we get. I'm sure we've all been in that situation where no matter how different a person may be, that one weird thing that stood out during the first encounter will always linger in your head. It's why Genshin and Wuwa, and honestly a lot of games, start out with a big cutscene to hook you in and keep your attention. Like how I sound like a moron in the beginning, but probably riled up both fandoms. See how I brought it back around? We could go more into depth, but I want you to focus on the actual gameplay over anything else, because within the first play session, you're going to be interacting with the gameplay more than the story.
Exactly. And we're comparing Wuthering Waves and, Genshin Impact on that. I'm not going to lie to you. Wuthering Waves blows them out the water within the first 10 minutes. Within the first 10 minutes of Wuthering Waves, you're already fighting a boss who looks cool as fuck. You're learning about the parry system. You're learning about the world right off the rip. And then not to mention, you're getting a bunch of rewards for doing so. Like, right off the rip in Wuthering Waves, they're not wasting no time at all with yapping or nothing else. Now, you compare that with Genshin Impact, where, yeah, you start off cool with this, the sustainer of heavenly principles. They got, as far as, once again, the story of Genshin Impact is there. The lore is there. It's just, there's too much yapping, bro. And then when it comes to traveling in the world, if we talk about how it feels to travel in Wuwa versus how it feels to travel in Genshin, if we're talking 2 players, free to play, nobody's pulled any, characters, Wuwa just clears, bro. Because in Wuwa, you can climb, jump, fly, grapple, climb on walls. Run on walls, my bad. You can do it all in Wuwa with every single character in the game. It's not character locked or anything. Meanwhile, with Genshin, you can only sprint for more than 10 seconds if you got Yelan or Lumine. Or not Lumine. Who is that one character? Who is it? freaking Lynette. Yeah, Lynette and Yelan are the only two characters that you can do where you can run, my ad, without running out of stamina for like more than 10 seconds. And then don't get me started on the fact that you can't climb. Like, once again, I could go on a rant about this, but like, holy crap. That first 10 minutes in Wuwa versus the first 10 minutes in Genshin, it's like night and day.
Before the children go into the comments and type, "Oh, because he knows Genshin is better." Shut the fuck up. You sound dumb. We'll talk about that later. It's a video game. Gameplay is the essence of a video game.
Yep.
If the gameplay sucks, no one wants to play the game. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
And all things considered, Genshin has a lot to offer. An interesting combat mechanic in the elemental reactions, a bunch of unique characters, and a huge open world environment to run around in and explore. Yet, you're only interacting with one of these elements right out the get-go.
Yep.
The open world.
The open world.
Is
That's the only thing that you interact with when it comes to Genshin in that first 10 minutes. That is it. All the element systems and all that, like, you get the wind element, sure. So you do get to interact with that. But a lot of it is just a lot of yap. It's just a lot of yapping, bro. It's just a bunch of yapping.
an open world game. And man, Genshin kind of fails as an open world game. I'm not saying this in a haha Genshin sucks kind of way. I'm saying this because there is a severe design flaw with Genshin that they overlooked when copying the notes of Breath of the Wild. Something we need to understand about open world games is that they need to fulfill these requirements to be successful. An interesting world to explore, and an actual fun way to traverse the world.
And see, here's the thing. Genshin Impact has a really interesting world to explore. They got some good lore. In fact, honestly, when it comes to the lore and everything like that in Genshin Impact, I'd argue that the lore and the story when it comes to that game, if it was done right, it's literally on par with WoW. Like, there's not that big of a difference, but it's how it's done. It's how it feels to be in the game and travel around everything like that. Like, what are we doing? And for Genshin Impact, and the way it came out, like with no other game other than Breath of the Wild being similar to it, yeah, sure, it was fine. It was something that nobody else was used to. But as we got newer and newer games, who have been doing the same formula Genshin has, but better, it's like they never improved. They just kept it the same. Like, once again, you compare the first 10 minutes of traveling around in WoW versus the first 10 minutes in Genshin, and it's night and day out there. It is night and day, and you'd be surprised that Genshin hasn't improved and seen all these other games and basically said, we need to start making our game look like that, because right now we're getting beat right now. We're getting beat pretty bad.
Genshin does have a pretty interesting world, despite being a little offbeat at times with the themes.
Yeah, true. That is, we're not going to get into the Nation of War. Like, oh my god, what that nation should have been looking like, man. The Nation of War, the Abyss, and all them fighting and everything. Like, bro, they could have gone a lot harder than they did. That's all I'm going to say.
Still a nice world. The problem is, movement sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh, here it goes again with the stamina and climbing walls. Well, yes. This is where I go, but you need to understand the movement is important because it's an
open world game.
The time it takes from point A to point B in Genshin without fast travel is not only slow, but unsatisfying. The most you have for traversal for all characters, not specific characters, that's a whole issue on its own, but let's stay on topic.
The ones locked behind a banner.
Well, running for a short amount of time and climbing for a short amount of time.
Yep.
Even with maxed out.
But I'm not gonna lie, if you had back then, if you had a Kazuha when he first got into the game was like revolutionary. Not only because he looked cool and he had a cool, group mechanic and his ult looked cool as hell, but just because of the fact that he can make you climb up walls faster. That's what made him revolutionary, at least back then. Now, we got other characters that could do that kind of thing, too. And once again, people in Genshin Impact have to legit make teams of people to climb up walls and run around the map. Teams, like specific teams. Like, in the case of right now, you probably have Mavika with her bike, Yelan, Lynette, and Sayu. That's the kind of team you need in order to travel across the map fast if you haven't unlocked any of the waypoints. That's the kind of team you're looking at. Because otherwise, you're going to be walking for a long time. Now, you compare that to Wuthering Waves, which, once again, we've already been over this, but you can run, sprint, climb, fly, grapple with every single character in the game. You don't got to get a certain character to do that. Like, once again, night and day.
Without stamina, it feels slow and sluggish. In gliding, which, by the way, in my opinion, sucks in every game that isn't Breath of the Wild or Batman. This shit is so cringe and lame, and I need it out of my games, please. Just my opinion, though. When you think about games like Spider-Man or Miles Morales or Spider-Man 2, the thing everyone loves are the beautiful open world that's complemented by its incredible traversal system. You can swing around, launch yourself, vault over and parkour, do tricks, do flips. And even in some other games, it's incorporated into the combat and allows you to bounce off of enemies.
That Spider-Man game was
Spider-Man
peak.
is too specific, then look at games like Prototype, Infamous Second Son, Assassin's Creed, GTA, The Witcher. The options are literally endless. And newsflash, almost every game I mentioned predates Genshin, but you need to have that balance, or else you would end up with a game like Forspoken that allows cool movement, but a bland world to explore. I don't know about you, but if I don't even feel good moving around, I'm over the game in about 10 minutes. Even Breath of the Wild allows you to ride around on a horse. And remember why I said that gliding sucks in games that aren't in Batman and Breath of the Wild? It's more than just that. Aside from horses, Breath of the Wild has almost the exact same movement. Except, contextually, it makes sense. Besides all the fantasy and magic in the Legend of Zelda world, Link himself is a pretty grounded character. He almost has zero magical abilities inherently, so him running around and gliding and climbing walls,
it makes sense.
But when you look at Genshin, you see motherfuckers summoning meteors, ripping space-time, and be fucking Blastoise.
And not to mention the fact that you had Lumine and Ether flying around within the first 10 seconds of the whole entire cutscene. Like, you start off the game with the ability to fly around. And then you get into the game and you're walking everywhere. Like, what? And yeah, I know there's a lore reason behind that, but still. They could have taken away their powers without taking away the ability to fly. Like, come on now.
But then you gotta pick flower number 439 at the top of a cliff face, and this is what you're looking at.
Yep. The pain, bro. If you didn't have Kazuha back then, oh my god, the struggle. And even then, with the game and how it is right now, like, bro, there's only so much you can do with characters like Kazuha, Venti, you know, who was that one chick with the glasses who turns into a freaking swan? Who was that again? Jesus Christ, it's been forever since I played that game, but you guys know who I'm talking about. You can only do so much even with them. And if you run out of stamina, you're cooked.
It makes you feel like Spider-Man. Well, as overplayed as it was, that should be the goal of the game. When I'm playing Spider-Man,
I should feel like I'm Spider-Man, yeah.
When I'm playing God of War, I want to feel like Kratos. But when I'm playing Genshin, I don't feel anything with the characters I'm playing.
Nope.
There's a serious disconnect.
It feels like it's empty, bro. It feels like it's empty. It feels like there's nothing, bro. You don't feel anything. The only thing that you feel is all your money going to the freaking, you know, Dawi's 20th yacht as you spend all that money to get a C6 Malvika or whatever new character comes out. Lose your 50-50 a bunch of times on the weapon banner and on the character banner. And then after you get the character, it's like, damn, I got her, but at what cost?
There's almost zero relation to how a character feels to play compared to how they're described in any other form. They feel like shitty action figures from the 99-cent store that promises you that they're official merchandise. It's immersion breaking, it's stupid looking, and worst of all, it's boring. The moment your game bores a player, you've lost them. They're gonna hop off.
Yep.
Bore them enough times, you'll never see that player again.
And that's why there's a lot of people where there was like a lot of people that would leave the game until an Archon quest would come out. I was one of them ones where I'd wait until an Archon quest comes out and then I'd play the game. And now I don't really care about the Archon quest. I kind of just watch them on YouTube at this point because a lot of it is just yapping. And 9 times out of 10, 11 minutes of the story is only the... Like, 11 minutes out of the hour that it takes to get through it is the only important stuff when it comes to the whole entire quest. Like, straight up.
Arguably, movement is more important than the combat itself. Genshin could have the most insane combat of all time. It doesn't. But if it takes me 7 business days and 4 Red Bulls to get from one fight to another, you've lost me. You could even make this comparison to real life. Imagine if you could only travel through New York City by walking or car and there were no trains or buses. Suddenly, going to that fire-ass pizza spot in Little Italy doesn't sound
so good anymore now, does it?
Changes in additions to the movement, but suddenly it completely transforms the experience. You can run infinitely as long as you're not in combat. You can parkour, you can run on walls, you don't have to rotate around an overhang and can flip over it. You can grapple, and all this makes traversal so much more seamless and fun.
And you don't have to spend a dime to do any of this either. You don't gotta spend a penny in this game to do any of this. This is all free, by the way. Meanwhile, in Genshin, you gotta pay C6. You gotta pay for a C6 Melvika to ride her bike for a long period of time, so that you don't run out of stamina walking everywhere. Night and day.
I mean, there were parkour videos coming out during Wuwa's release, and we saw the same thing when Flight was introduced, with people showing off their flight abilities. When you make an action open world game, there's almost just as much importance on how you play the game outside of combat as there is during combat. And yes, I maintain that gliding is still boring and lame and stupid in Wuwa as well.
But yeah, who's gliding at this point when we can fly?
But again, that's just my opinion. It just don't got the same flavor as Batman gliding in and drop kicking bitches. Even in combat, Wuwa allows more options in comparison to Genshin, like grappling, countering, intro and outro skills. But I want to focus on the dodge mechanic, because it is something that is both the games share. Sort of. So Genshin...
So see, here's the thing. Genshin has a bug where if you sprint at the right time, you can dodge. But it's not actually a dodge. Whereas in Wuwa, the dodge mechanic was actually put in the game.
It does have a dodge button. You can press it and you dash in a direction of your choosing. And you do get some iframes, which is nice.
But it's not an actual dodge.
It can be used to dodge, but you're rarely negating all damage with it unless you're like giga sweaty. And it's more used to like relocate. Not bad, but it does make you feel less in control of what you want your character to do and can feel unsatisfying. Wuwa counters this issue by adding a perfect dodge mechanic. You can preemptively dodge like in Genshin, but dodge at the perfect time and you're rewarded with a cool animation, complete negation of damage, and a cool little slow motion effect.
Yep.
Yet, you're pressing the same button.
Pressing the same button, man.
Bridges the gap between what you're imagining your character to do in the game
versus what you're actually happening, bro.
Creating this illusion of more options when, again, you're just pressing the same button, and thus makes you feel more in control of your character. These small additions allow for more fluid gameplay, which is Genshin's biggest weakness when you're talking about a comparison between the two, and why more new players are gravitating towards Wuwa. Does that make Genshin's gameplay awful? No, it's still a fully playable game. But when Nicholas says he feels at 100% when playing Wuwa as opposed to Genshin, can you blame him? Going from Wuwa to Genshin is literally driving a 2025 Honda Civic and then driving a 2006 Honda Accord. Yeah,
yep.
They're both cars, but you're going to be missing all those neat little features in the 2025 model. And these mechanics are stuff you're interacting with throughout the entire game.
The entire game,
so
man.
When your first impressions of Genshin is sluggish and outdated, can you really blame someone for not wanting to continue? Especially...
Like, if you sit a child down right now, and you put them in front of Wuwa, and then you put them in front of Genshin, which one do you think they're going to choose? If you ask them which one you think is better when it comes to movement, combat. Like, I'm talking like a 10-year-old, 12-year-old child who's probably played some video games before at this point. Which one do you think they're going to choose? Because I already know the answer, because I sat my younger brother in front of both of these games already. And guess which one he's playing right now? In his room, as we are talking right now. It's actually probably Pokemon, but you guys get the point. He plays Wuwa more than he plays Genshin, and I introduced him to Genshin 4 years ago. He's completely dropped that game at this point, and I didn't have to tell him to do it either.
After they made the mistake of trying Wuwa first, yes, I do think playing Wuwa was an inevitable mistake on Nicholas's part, but can't really blame him for that. But Genshin's story is more in-depth and way better.
The story is good. The presentation's ass cheeks, though. Straight cheeks. Take, for example, the newest quest that they came out with, Dainsleif. Dainsleif, I might add, who was one of my favorite characters in all of Genshin Impact, because he just adds so much to the story. Whenever he's in the story, you know shit's about to go down. And he had a fight, 2 fights, as a matter of fact, where he was fighting the Abyss. And they off-screened him. They off-screened one of the coolest characters fight scenes of all time. You would think Dainsleif would be deserving of a cutscene or something, right? But no, they off-screened him. Yeah. They off-screened Dainsleif. You ain't hearing me wrong.
Zero experience on the Genshin story. I literally stopped playing during Klee's release. But you guys have to understand, if you don't have the gamer hooked within the first 30 minutes, who cares about the story? If it's
that is true.
To even get to NPC 1 in 327.
That's another thing too, is when it does come to the story, yes, once again, the story is good. There's a lot of good story, there's a lot of good lore, but the way that they do it, it's supposed to be show, don't tell. And they do a lot more telling than they do showing, which is why you gotta go and talk to 10 million different NPCs before you even get to the good part. And by the time you get to the good part, you're already tired. You're already drained. That's why 90% of the time, when it comes to Genshin's World Quest, everybody will talk about the big moments in Genshin Impact, but what about the rest of it? What about the rest of the quest? Nobody talking about that. You know why? Because it was all Yap Fest. And 90% of the time it's about shit that don't matter. Like, once again, I think that Genshin's story quest, they could be shrunk down to a lot longer if you remove all the irrelevant NPCs that don't matter.
To interact with the story, who gives a flying fuck? The only games that primarily focus on story are visual novels. Every other case, the story is simply a bonus. Bro, games used to put the story in the pamphlet in the game case.
Yep.
Does that mean story isn't important? No. But I'd rather play a game that has the most abysmal story, but phenomenal gameplay, over playing a shit game with a good story. If I wanted to do that, I'd read a book.
Exactly. And hilariously enough, listening to Genshin's story is a lot better than playing through it 90% of the damn time. Like, 90% of the time whenever I'm playing Genshin Impact, the most hype moments don't come from me playing it, it comes from me watching shit go down. Like, I have more fun watching the stories now on YouTube, learning about the lore on YouTube, than actually playing it in the game. That's how insufferable it is to try and play these story quests now. Once again, I think Fontaine was the peak of this. I'm not gonna lie. I think Fontaine was the peak. For real. Yeah, it had somewhat of a Yap Fest here and there, but when it had those moments where the important shit was going on, there wasn't any time being wasted. They actually just got straight to the point. Show, don't tell. Whereas with Natlan, from what I'm hearing, and also from what I've watched, there's a whole lot of Yap Fest and a whole lot of nothing going on there. Then they have a couple of good cutscenes, and sheesh. I could keep going, man. I really could, to harp on like what's going on with the game, but it's like, it doesn't matter how good your story and lore is if it's a slog to get through.
Well, then they're just impatient and can't deal with slow burn. Okay, so let's talk about tolerance. Remember when I said
That's a lie too, bro. I got hella books. I got hella books, bro. And it's not, but let's be real. I can read. In fact, one of my favorite pastimes is reading. But when I'm reading some shit, and 90% of the yapping going on, or whatever I'm reading, doesn't matter at all, and it's just there to put filler in, I'm gonna get sick and tired of reading that shit. That's why we call it a Yap Fest in the first place, because it's just yapping. It doesn't matter to the story at all.
There's two things. Tolerance, as you can see, is the ability or willingness to tolerate something. In particular, to the existence of opinions or behavior that one does not necessarily agree with. You have to understand that Genshin came out during COVID, a period of time that took a huge toll on people, especially our generation.
Yep.
Social interaction was at an all-time low. Everyone was stuck at home, and that led to an upsurge in online presence and activity.
Yep.
Soon, that backlog of anime finished. All those movies they wanted to watch, done and rated. All those games that never had time to complete, 100%ed.
It ain't hard to go ahead and complete all that Yap Fest when you ain't got nothing else to do. But when the world went back to normal, GG's.
During a time where all these forms of media were incredibly popular, was also a double-edged sword because guess what? All those studios that made those movies and games set back hard because of COVID. So shows were put on a hiatus, movie filming was halted, and games entered straight-up development hell. So here comes along Genshin, a new gacha game that broke into the mainstream with its uncanny resemblance to Breath of the Wild.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Genshin, once again, it got popular during the correct time, bro. It came in at the perfect storm when everybody was inside, bored as fuck. Because let me tell you right now, if Genshin Impact was to come out today the exact same way it did back in 2020, it would still be a big game, but it wouldn't be as popular as it is now.
Iconic anime art style, and the promise of having near infinite content. And guess what? Genshin was an instant hit. It was insane how popular this game got. And although I didn't stick with the game for too long, I completely understood why other people remained. It was an entirely new world to explore that was really hard to find anywhere else. And that's the thing. It was hard to find a game like that anywhere else. So without any real competition, without anything to compare to, or without any way to see what could be better, a lot of players became complacent. What normally would call for outrage was the norm. People tolerated the shitty and outdated flaws of Genshin Impact.
And they still are, by the way. Which is why they are still spending thousands of dollars on the game.
Because there was nothing better. You skip to 2024, now players have been playing Genshin for 3 to 4 years. Players are now attached and used to the game's mechanics, despite the option that offers an upgrade in almost every conceivable way. And instead of welcoming it gladly, it was rejected, put down, ridiculed.
Bro, there was so many idiots that were out here talking about how Wuthering Waves will be dead in 1 week. Holy crap, man.
It almost kind of sounds like, my god, you guys are turning into my parents. I literally got my mom a whole new phone, yet she uses the rinky-dinky broken taped up Samsung Galaxy S8 because she's used to it. It was seen as a threat to all the years they had spent on the game they had loved, but also just grown to tolerate. That's what we call sunk cost fallacy.
Yep.
A lot of people at this point,
And a lot of them got that shit, bro. Especially the ones that dumped $1 million into it. Not saying all of them are like that, but the ones who dipped, like, bro, dumped their whole life savings into that game, bro. For them, Genshin is their freaking life, their soul, bro. They live, eat, and breathe and sleep the game, which is fine. If you enjoy the game, go ahead. But you can't go ahead and dismiss the flaws that it has either. And unfortunately for us, you know, people who actually care about Genshin getting better, whenever somebody back then tried to criticize the game so that it would get better, these idiots would dogpile on the person criticizing the game to the point of where they would have to get canceled off the internet or some bullcrap like that, to the point where now Genshin's in a spot right now where it's damn near impossible to fix. And the worst part is the devs don't want to fix it either. They already got the people with sunk cost fallacy stuck in the game. They already got it. They don't need to try anymore. Which is why, despite the fact that you got better games out there, you still got Genshin 5 years in and it still hasn't improved on anything. On the way it's told its story, on its in-game features. In fact, if anything, it's gotten worse. It's actually crazy.
by being discouraged by the lack of desired changes, we're sticking along because of all the time and money they spent. So if they quit now, it'd be a waste. It's always been a waste, and that goes for every gacha game, not just Genshin. New players don't have that holding them back. New players get the chance to compare the two games, and guess what? They're going to play the game that feels better to play as people who have zero prior experience. You can say you prefer Genshin's gameplay, but in a pure technological and a game sense, Wuthering Waves does offer more. Hence,
Wuthering Waves to me is me in my best shape.
at the end of the day, this is all about taste. Some people like the slower pace, some people like the more colorful and cartoony style that Genshin has to offer, and some people also prefer focus on story rather than intensive gameplay, and that's perfectly fine. But
And I'm gonna be real. Yeah, as he said, it's perfectly fine. But let's be real. They could tell Genshin's story way better than they are. They're simply not trying anymore. Let's be real with ourselves. Bruh. If we were to take Genshin's story and then have the people who do Wuwa's story like direct that shit, like as far as how it looks and everything like that, and how the cutscenes go, bro, holy crap. I would be playing through Natlan right now. I would have probably already finished it. But instead, they got whoever the frick is in charge of Genshin's writing doing the crap, and, well, we know how that's looking at the moment. Because once again, Genshin has an incredible story, incredible lore. A lot of the Genshin Impact content creators that I watch to this day still are the lore people. Because I am interested in Genshin's world. But the problem is playing through it, like, actually playing through it is just so painful to do these days. Like, it doesn't feel good. Not to mention, there's so much unneeded bloat in the game that just doesn't need to be there. And once again, I could keep going. I could rant on and on and on. But at this point, we're just beating a dead horse, so I'm not going to.
you have to understand that for the vast majority, the game comes first. And if they aren't hooking the player within those first 30 minutes, it's cooked. You also have to accept you're now becoming the boomer in this genre of gacha games. You're the person that's going, back in my day, we needed to climb up the mountain. We don't do that newfangled wall running and flying and horse riding. The game, by a lot of standards, is outdated, and people are going to gravitate towards the new and shinier toy. It happened with Genshin and Star Rail. It happened with Genshin and Wuwa. And it'll probably happen with Wuwa and Silver Palace, or Dual Knight Abyss, or whatever other gacha game is coming out.
Yeah, he's not lying about that.
So while I can understand the frustration of seeing your game not being given the due diligence, you have to also understand that Genshin is slowly becoming a product of its time.
Yep. And because it didn't improve, it's slowly, it won't ever not be relevant, because let's be real, it was the pioneer. We gotta give it that. It was the pioneer when it comes to gacha. But slowly but surely, people are leaving that game behind. And honestly, it should be a lot more successful than it is right now. It really should. But unfortunately, we just live in one of them days where, with Hoyoverse, for some reason, they just gave up on it. And now we are in the situation that we are in. So, hey, it is what it is. But, hey, everybody's got their own taste. Me personally, I think that, Wuwa does it all better. It really does. And if Genshin actually wanted to make their game better, they would actually be copying what Wuwa and all these newer games are doing. But that's up to Hoyoverse, not us. All we can do is give back the feedback. And if they don't want to listen to the feedback, we just move on. Unless we got some cost fallacy. Well, then you got all the people right now still trying to defend that lazy storytelling that they got going on right now. So, hey, it is what it is. But without further ado, Shinobi signing off, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.